Thank you, Cathaoirleach. Firstly, I want to welcome the Minister and congratulate him. And I suppose you're straight into the job, so it's a tough day for you. But I want to congratulate you. I also want to take this opportunity to congratulate Minister Paschal Donohoe, who's chair of the Eurogroup, and that plays such a significant part of what we're talking about here today. And I wish him well as he embarks on what is going to be a very, very challenging and demanding job, coupled with his own work as Minister for Finance. I suppose I just want to start off by saying that the COVID-19 pandemic constitutes an unprecedented economic and social challenge for Europe, and indeed the wider world. The European Council called on the Eurogroup to develop proposals to tackle the social economic consequences of the pandemic and to develop a comprehensive package amounting, as we know, to 540 billion. And this was agreed by the Eurogroup, as was said earlier, and endorsed, of course, by the European Council. I understand that this package includes 3 safety nets to minimise the short economic consequences of the COVID-19 crisis for workers, for business and for member states. And the 3 elements being SURE, which is the instrument to protect jobs and workers, which is critically important, the EIB Pan-European Guarantee Fund, and then the ESM's Pandemic Crisis Support Instrument. And I want to ask the Minister if he could address this issue of the ESM Pandemic Crisis Support Instrument, because I can't quite get that piece in this legislation. You might just tease out some of that, or perhaps at a later date provide us with some more information, particularly in relation to that aspect of it. This bill relates to SURE, as has been outlined by the Minister and previous speakers, and of course the EIB's Pan-European Guarantee Fund. SURE is intended primarily to support the Member States with efforts to protect workers and jobs and support some healthcare measures. There has been a recurring theme here today, of course, about recovery, about solidarity, about social cohesion, and I think they're really important. And it is about all Member States stepping up to the plate. And I think there are important key themes and key issues that, as I say, previous speakers have talked on, and I think it's important that we always remember those issues. I note that this is the first piece of legislation that the Department of Finance has brought forward since the formation of the Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and Green coalition government, and that's very, very important, and it's clearly a priority for your department. I support the government's wish to have this important piece of legislation passed as soon as practically possible, and for it to receive the early signature of the President, as is the desire of the government. I understand that SURE cannot be accessed by any Member State until all, and I repeat, all Member States have signed the guarantee agreement, and you might also confirm that here today, Minister. I also understand that the Commission need all the Member States' guarantees in place in order to access the bond markets on the possible terms, and again you might be in a position to confirm that. Minister, I have a few questions I simply want to ask. Is it the case that most other Member States will be ready to sign the SURE guarantees by the end of July? I understood half of them would be now in place, but there is some suggestion that that process might have slowed, and we need to have assurances on that, and you might confirm that to the House. We know that Ireland cannot participate in the EIB Pan-European Guarantee Fund unless the financial provisions of COVID-19 bill is enacted. So clearly it's important, and I would hope today we'll get it done. It isn't ideal to have all stages of legislation coming through the House in the one day, but these are challenging times, difficult times, and I want to assure the government they have my absolute support on the bill as it currently stands. It's complex, but it's clearly set out, and we have to proceed. SURE presents an opportunity for Ireland to show solidarity, and Senator Darcy elaborated on that, a key word of solidarity in relation to the COVID-19 and our Member States. So this is a challenge for the Member States to show solidarity, and I hope that everyone will step up to the plate. Irish business and public sector bodies cannot apply for finance support from this fund until Ireland has signed the contribution agreement with the EIB, and that's clearly set out in the Memorandum of Understanding and the documents that we were provided for. Minister, it is my understanding that SURE is temporary in nature, and I explained that by saying with the duration and scope is limited to tackling the consequences of the coronavirus pandemic. I understand that SURE would come with safeguards to ensure fair and equitable access to the funding from the Member States. I also understand the loans will be underpinned by a system of voluntary guarantees from the Member States. Minister, will you please elaborate on these matters at some point if you have an opportunity to come back, because I think they're important issues. Minister, I also understand that each Member State will be expected to contribute to the guarantee, and this is important, in proportion to its relative share in the total gross national income of the Union. And so when we refer, let's focus on Ireland here for a second, and when we talk about Ireland, it is my understanding that it has been suggested that Ireland would have an approximate liability of 483 million. Is that your understanding? Because I think we need to clarify that. The type of national schemes eligible under SURE. What schemes are available to us under SURE? What other schemes are available? What is the potential to tap into these schemes? I think we need to hear more about that. The objective of SURE investment is to aid Member States, as we said earlier on, to keep people in jobs and certain occupational health related measures. So I think that's important. I understand that as of the 2nd of July, the cumulative value of payments made to employees under the scheme is 1.878 billion. That's a phenomenal amount of money. And finally, I want to say, Minister, can you give this House and its members assurances that the Ireland temporary COVID-19 wage subsidy scheme will absolutely be eligible for loan support in relation to these matters? I do have a number of other matters in relation to the various sections. I recognise that you're new here today, and I don't want to bamboozle anyone. I know you're very able, very confident, former chair of the PAC, but I do have some queries in relation to Section 3, Section 4 and Section 6. And rather than conscious of 1 minute, I'll just deal with Section 4. Section 4 provides a financial cap that may be paid out of the central fund to enable the state to comply with its obligations under the SURE guarantee. Do you know, or can you tell this House and its members, what the figure for that cap is? Thank you, Minister.